Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Breakthrough to Best Self. I'm Holly Levine, and I'm speaking to you just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Then, as always, I'm joined by my brilliant co-host, Lauren Aaliyah. She's coming all the way from Durban, South Africa. Lauren, how you doing today?
Hey, everyone. How's it, Holly? Doing great, doing great. Always just so good to be here, good to connect with everyone. These conversations we have on Breakthrough to Best Self are just, they're so meaningful, Hols, not just, of course, for our viewers and people that we are sending this podcast out for, but for me personally, I really do benefit so much. How are things going out in the US of A, Holly? How's things on your side of the world?
Hey, things are awesome over here. Winter has arrived, but I'm in southeastern US, so it's just bringing on the cooler weather, which is perfect for me and for the grounding practices that I enjoy, like outdoor walks. And speaking of grounding, today's topic, to me, it feels extremely timely because we're talking about burnout today. And burnout, you know what? It's something that a lot of people are dealing with, especially this time of year with the end of the year rush.
Yeah. Holly, I'm thinking of just about, work deadlines, family obligations, just the constant hustle and bustle of life. We really do live in such a fast-paced world, right? And it seems to just be um, not getting any slower. Like everywhere you turn, people have got long to-do lists, they've got lots to do. We're all squeezing in so much life into such a short space of time. And it feels like burnout. And of course, in today's episode, we're going to be talking a lot more on what we mean by burnout. But this experience of burnout seems to be coming it's becoming a universal experience. And I mean, it's actually quite scary how normalized it's becoming, people wearing their burnout as a badge of honor. Like, I'm so busy, I must be doing something right. I know that's something that I felt for a long time, is that if I wasn't in a restful state, in a calm state, I wasn't being productive. So there's something about just go pace that almost feels, normal. It feels productive. And actually, burnout is, our body's way of saying, hold on a second, like something is not right, hey?
Totally. You know what? I think it's worth emphasizing that burnout isn't just about being tired. It's a recognized condition, and it has very, very real consequences for our physical and our mental health. And as a matter of fact, the World Health Organization officially classified burnout as an occupational phenomenon in 2019. And I know I've had this experience myself, and so many people that we've worked with have had the same experience. Studies have linked it to everything from cardiovascular issues to cognitive decline. So today, we're going to unpack what burnout truly is, how to recognize it, and most importantly, how to reclaim our energy and balance. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's break down what burnout really is. At its core, burnout is what happens when chronic stress builds up and isn't managed effectively. I like to think about it as like a car engine that's been running and running on overdrive for far too long. And it starts to overheat and eventually it breaks down. And burnout typically shows up in three key ways. So, first, you've got these emotional exhaustion. This is when you feel just completely drained, like you've been running on empty for weeks or months. And it's that bone deep sort of fatigue, or even like basic tasks feel overwhelming. And no amount of sleep seems to help.
Yeah. I think that's just such, that's a good description, Holly. Um, you know, I think what makes emotional exhaustion so challenging is that it doesn't just, affect your energy levels. It seeps into everything. It actually just goes into every part of your life. You wake up feeling like the day is, too much already, and then every activity that you got to get on and do, your job or your family or your work, everything just feels like it's such a big chore. Even the things that used to bring you joy. There may be things you enjoyed, like hobbies or socializing with friends or, going to the gym. There's so many things that in the past would bring you joy if when you're in a state of balance. But when you're in a state of burnout, everything feels difficult. And it's almost as though your emotional battery, if you like, is stuck on, 5% if you're lucky. But it's like this battery drain, and you can't seem to kick out of it. No matter how much you try to rest, you just can't seem to get out of it. And what I've noticed with clients that I work with is that this kind of exhaustion that we're talking about, the burnout exhaustion, it
Mhm.
doesn't happen all at once. Like you don't just wake up and you're like, oh, I'm really tired today. It sneaks up gradually. And so at first, there may be, oh, I've missed a few meals, or I've had a few late nights, and it keeps going. And then over time, it just adds up. It adds up, and then you suddenly hit a wall. You hit a wall and you realize, I cannot keep going like this. And that's how we know we're in that state of emotional exhaustion that you're talking about, that burnout
Yes.
state. Halls, tell us other ways that burnout shows up.
Okay. All right. Let's take a look at the second aspect. It's something that's called depersonalization. And that's a big word, I know. But what it really means is feeling disconnected or numb, almost like you're going through the motions of life without really being present. And oh my goodness, I can remember moments of burnout in my life where I was not present at all. And I don't know how I even made it through those moments. It's just like going through the motions. And it was that sense of, I don't care anymore. And it could be about work, it could be about relationships, or even, like you said, the things that we loved. And then another aspect is reduced sense of accomplishment. It's like when you start to feel that nothing you do matters or makes a difference, even if you're working hard and you're meeting your goals. Sometimes somehow it feels hollow, like you're just spinning your wheels without getting anywhere. And
Yeah.
that's a hard place to be.
It is. I listened to you describing aspects of burnout, everything from, feeling disconnected and numb in that state of, depersonalization, or that reduced sense of accomplishment where nothing matters, nothing I'm doing is making a difference, life feels hollow. So often, this is described as depression. It's like somebody would be saying, oh, I'm in a deep, dark depression. Sometimes you even get a diagnosis of depression. Sometimes you even prescribed antidepressant drugs. And what you're really experiencing is burnout, because it sounds so much like a depressed state. And that's not discounting that some people may be experiencing a, mental illness or state of depression. But what I'm saying is that so often the symptoms of burnout, the experience of burnout, can be misconstrued as a state of depression. And so rather than treating depression and treating with drugs, as quite often depression is treated with, what we may really need is to recreate this balance and to restore our energy and to get ourselves out of this state of burnout. But it's, what, it's like we are conditioned, as I was saying, to just keep pushing, to ignoring
Yeah.
these signs, which, as I said, it starts so subtly. Just feeling a little bit more irritable, or having trouble concentrating on even the simplest tasks, or just noticing that you're needing, if you're somebody that has caffeine in your day, you're noticing that you just need more and more of it just to get through the day. And so before you know it, this just snowballs. It snowballs over time. Earlier on, Hals, you used the analogy of the car engine, and I absolutely love that sort of visual and understanding of the car engine, because I think it's really helpful to see burnout as not just about feeling tired, because we can feel tired and we can feel really tired and we can even feel exhausted, but not be in a state of burnout. So burnout is about running on empty. And that's why that car analogy, that car engine makes so much sense to me, because it's literally running out of fuel. And if you just think about the car, ignoring the petrol light coming on, you're running out of fuel, you're going to have a breakdown. If you ignore the flashing light that says you need to get fuel, it's halfway, it's a quarter tank, it's on reserve, you're running on empty. And that's how burnout creeps up on us. You actually see those signs. And if we ignore it, the breakdown's going to happen. And really tragic, the breakdown in our case means serious health problems. Okay. So, yes, we spoke about, anxiety and depression, but there's so many other physical issues as well that we experience in a state of burnout. There's just depleted immune system that's totally weakened by this kind of level of fatigue, and chronic conditions, high blood pressure starting to creep in, cardiovascular issues, getting a heart attack. It's, these are things that we are at risk if we ignore signs of burnout. One of the most striking studies that I came across as we were researching for today's episode was the fact that burnout actually impacts the brain's prefrontal cortex, your frontal lobe, that central governor where all your decision making and focus takes place. Burnout affects our ability to think straight, to make decisions. And what that means is that the very choices that we could make that could help us recover, they may not be accessible to us because that impact on your frontal lobe. Isn't that just a vicious cycle, Halls?
It really is. It really is. And I'm really grateful that you're pointing out all of the ways that our bodies, our minds, holistically can be affected. When you're talking about physically, you're talking about our immune system and our cardiovascular, mentally, with our prefrontal cortex being affected. And I would even argue emotionally, because I know that my emotions become escalated and elevated when I'm in burnout mode. So, all of these things that you're talking about, they're such important points. And, I think now might be a great time to remind our viewers, to ask themselves, are you feeling drained? Are you feeling detached? Do you feel like you're constantly running on empty? Maybe. And if so, then this episode might be exactly what you're looking for right here, right now.
Yeah. Hold, you asked that question, and I'm remembering, my own experience with burnout back when, I was juggling a corporate career in, marketing communications agency. And I was also starting my coaching practice. I was studying, I was, balancing life and family. I hit a point where I honestly felt like I was running on fumes. Talk about that car engine running out of fuel. I was honestly running on fumes. I'd wake up in the morning tired. So it felt like I was asleep. I'd have, a few hours of sleep, but I'd literally wake up feeling tired, get out of bed and feel exhausted. From the moment my feet hit the ground, just be exhausted. And then I was one of those people that just powered through the day on, caffeine, cup after cup, just pushing myself through, and then literally crashing at night, sitting down at the end of the evening and not even being able to have a conversation with my husband, feeling so irritable at the thought of even concentrating on what he's saying, let alone trying to watch TV or watch a movie or, just kind of falling asleep, and then, of course, starting again the next morning, waking up feeling exhausted. And it wasn't until I started prioritizing self care, I came into my own recovery. I was, as I said, I was training, I was doing my coaching at the time, and starting to incorporate some of those coaching practices into my own life, um, as well as setting some boundaries, with myself, with others, that I actually started to feel like myself again. I thought I'm never going to get out of that state. I thought I'm just stuck there.
I totally relate to what you're saying, and I appreciate you sharing that, Lauren. I've had a pretty similar journey when it comes to this whole burnout experience. There was a time where I was trying to balance work and balance my family and my hypnotherapy practice and so many other things. And I found myself completely overwhelmed. And what actually helped me was incorporating sound therapy into my life, my routine. And honestly, for me, it was like hitting this reset button for my nervous system. And I want to put this out here again to our viewers. Have you guys had moments like this? We would love to hear your stories. Feel free to put a comment and let us know what your burnout experiences look like for you, or perhaps how you were able to get out of burnout. And we may share some of this on future episodes here. So, all right, you guys, let's dive into some actions that we can take to move forward from burnout to balance. And the first one that I'm going to start out with right here is mindfulness. Now, I know that that word gets thrown around a lot, but mindfulness can truly be a game changer. It's not just about meditation, which I do love meditation. It's very helpful. But it's about being present in your everyday life. And research actually has shown that even a few minutes of mindful breathing, which, we even have a breath work episode that we've recorded, can help lower these cortisol, these markers of stress in our lives. So that's
Mhm.
that's exciting.
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. That mindfulness, that meditative practice, that breath work, all of these things, as you said, Halls, game changers, right? But for those maybe who maybe you find kind of traditional mindfulness practices challenging, how about journaling, writing? I often encourage clients that come to me talking about this feeling of just, being totally wiped out, exhausted, not being able to go on. We do a practice where we simply write what is draining my energy. What is draining my energy? And on the flip side, what is bringing me joy? So, what is
Mm,
energizing me? And trying to increase the energy giving activities in my life and reducing the energy
yes,
draining. And you know what? It's amazing how much clarity you get when you just put those thoughts down on paper. So, that's a really simple way to start to get perspective around what is draining your energy and what's bringing you energy in your life. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And I'm going to just throw this tool out here one more time, because I love it so much. And I just want to highlight sound therapy, which I use a lot in my practice as well as in my personal life, because sound has a direct impact on our brain waves. So we can shift out of this stressed out beta state of our brain waves, and we can shift into a more relaxed alpha or theta state. I want to just throw this out here to you guys that there are many recordings out there that will say, change your brain waves into a more relaxed state, alpha, theta. You can find these recordings out there and listen to them, and it's just a very simple way to help relax your brain into a better, more balanced state. There's such fascinating research showing that sound baths can reduce anxiety and improve sleep.
Oh my gosh. I have personally experienced this. I've got my husband enjoying sound baths with me
Yeah.
on certain evenings. I don't always do it, Halls, I must admit, but of course, working with you as I do, and getting, more familiar with the benefits of sound therapy. It's something I use more often than I used to, where I've had a really busy, stressful day and I've got lots of racing thoughts and I'm trying to unwind for bed. And I reach over, use my phone, which is wonderful. I have my phone next to me, go on to one of the streaming apps. Sometimes I come on, onto YouTube, find a video, and just play those wonderful sound baths on the side. And I must tell you, I definitely have better sleep. So, yeah, I'm glad the research confirms what I'm experiencing. And Halls, another simple way to, of course, just help us get this balance is good old movement, right? We cannot ignore the benefits of physical activity, and it doesn't have to be some big major workout that we're talking about. In fact, you don't want to be doing big major workouts when you're in a state of burnout. This is where gentle exercises, yoga, or even just a 10-minute walk. So something gentle that just helps to settle those sort of activated nervous system and brings in a sense of calm. So movement is extremely beneficial when we're trying to create balance. And then, of course, you know what? My good old favorite is EFT, emotional freedom technique, tapping. Most people know it as tapping. This is something I use a lot in my practice. And for those who are not familiar with tapping or EFT, again, good research, well understood. It's modern. It's a combination of modern psychology because you are using sort of mental thought practices, but you're combining that with sort of ancient acupressure because you're actually tapping on different meridian points. And so for burnout, tapping can be especially effective when we're addressing emotions or feelings like overwhelm or guilt, or anxiety that often comes with chronic stress. And again, good research studies show how EFT can reduce cortisol levels, which you mentioned, Holly, that stress hormone that gets extremely elevated when we're in that state of burnout, which, kind of mimics that fight flight mode that we're in. So again, a really beautiful, simple way that we can use EFT. And again, you mentioned sound therapy being available on video. You can also find a lot of videos on, with scripts around EFT and showing you how to tap and where to tap. And, I've guided clients many times through tapping techniques specifically to let go of mental and emotional exhaustion, which we were talking about. Okay, so Hals, one thing we haven't touched on yet, and that is I mentioned it earlier, kind of as part of the way I moved through burnout and got back to balance was about setting boundaries. Let's talk about that because quite often burnout happens as a result of just saying yes too much. Like just not saying no enough. And it's saying yes, whether it's, work commitments, social obligations, or even our own internal expectations on ourselves. Just not saying no to certain things and allowing things to just be, but saying yes and taking so much and so much more on. We need to really protect our time and our energy, right?
Let me just raise my hand right here, Lauren, and say, recovering people pleaser, right here, right here. Because that was my life experience. Yes, I can do this. Yes, 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 yes. There was nothing left for me. And so I actually always share with my clients a thought process. It's like thinking about our energy as a bank account. And every time we say yes, we're making a withdrawal. But if we're not replenishing that, if we're not making deposits through rest and play and self care, Just like a bank account, we're going to end up overdrawn. And that's not
Mm,
any place that we want to be.
yeah. And you mentioned self-care and taking care of yourself. That aspect of self-care or self-compassion is such an important piece when we either avoiding burnout or even recovering from it and trying to restore balance. So many people feel guilty about taking a rest or taking time for
Yeah.
themselves or setting boundaries and saying no. But self-compassion, self-care is such an essential piece of how we're going to restore balance, and recover from burnout if we're experiencing it or avoid it at all. And again, we are always looking at what does the research show, and the studies definitely show that practicing self-compassion can reduce stress, and it
Yes.
builds resilience. And so building resilience is important. It's as important as reducing stress, because on the one hand, reducing stress and tools that help us reduce stress help to reset that nervous system, lower cortisol levels. Building resilience is about not being overwhelmed by life when life is lifing, right? Things are going to
Right.
come at us. Things are going to come at us. And we know that we're not always going to be in a position to slow the world down and take our time and be all zen. Sometimes life's just going to be coming at us. It's going to be one thing after the other. And it's going to be, I'm going to deal with this challenge, and suddenly work gets busier. And that's the same time my car breaks down. And that's the same, it happens sometimes. So building resilience for those periods of time is another way that we can avoid burnout. And again, research showing that this practice of self-compassion, the part you're talking about of being able to say no, saying yes to ourselves, depositing into that bank account is a way to reduce stress and build that resilience. So it's about treating ourselves with the same kindness, I guess, that we'd offer to a friend, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
I feel
Okay,
like we need
Hoff.
to do a episode just on resilience, but we'll get there. We'll get there. All right, you guys. So to wrap things up, burnout is not a sign of weakness, you guys. It's just a signal or a red flag that something needs to change. Whether it's through mindfulness, movement, sound therapy, EFT, setting boundaries, small, consistent steps make a huge difference. And you know what? Recovery from burnout isn't about overhauling everything overnight. Because let me tell you something. You want to feel stressed. Think about, I have to overcome burnout all overnight. That's just adding to it, right? It's about making intentional choices that align with our well being, one small step at a time, and we give ourselves permission to rest and recharge. I love this.
Yeah, permission to rest and recharge. It's so interesting that, we bring that to a close talking about giving ourselves permission to rest and recharge, because so much of our recovery from burnout, our restoration of energy and balance is about putting ourselves first, at least for a little while, at least for a little while until we practice on how to fit ourselves onto that priority list. So I love what you said about, just giving ourselves permission, give ourselves permission to
Yeah.
rest and recharge. That's our invitation to everybody watching today. If you enjoyed this particular episode, this conversation was helpful, just to get you thinking about what is depleting your energy and how you can start to make those deposits. If you enjoyed this video in any way, please hit the like button, leave us a comment, tell us what you think about this topic, and please do share it. Share it with somebody you think is heading for burnout or is in a state of burnout. Share this video with them. Let them know that these may be the red flags that are on the horizon, and we don't want to break down. So we wish you peace and self-care and a wonderful balance. Take care of ourselves, rest and recharge until we see you again in the next episode of Breakthrough to Best Self. Guys, keep reaching to be your best self. We'll see you in the next one.